Okay, we're live. If you can introduce the topic and come there, inshallah. Listen.
Bismillah, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most beneficent, we welcome you warmly to another evening of lectures in our series of lectures entitled Saving Yourselves from the Fire, or Safeguarding Yourself Against the Fire. And again, we are very happy to have our Sheikh Muhammad ibn Abdullah al-Maliki, may Allah preserve him, delivering the lecture. And tonight's lecture, which is entitled The Mockery, or to avoid mockery of the pious. So we ask Allah the Most High to accept from our Sheikh and the organizers, and we also ask him the Most High to open up for our Sheikh so he can deliver an inspiring lecture as he does usually, and we ask him to proceed. فَلْيَتَفَضَّلُوا مَشْكُورًا شَيْخَنَا بَارَكَ اللَّهُ فِيكُم.
الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام الأتمان الأكملان على محمد رسول الله سيد الأولين والآخرين وإمام الأنبياء والمرسلين والشافع المشفع يوم الدين وعلى آله الطيبين وأزواجه الطاهرات أمهات المؤمنين ومن استنى بسنته واهتدى بهديه إلى يوم الدين أما بعد.
All praises are due to Allah, the Most High, and we send peace, the most complete peace and blessings upon our Prophet Muhammad, the leader or the best of those who came first and the best of those who came towards the end of times, the Imam of the first and the Imam of the last, the one who gives the intercessor for those who seek the intercession in the hereafter. And we also ask Allah to send and shower his peace and blessings upon his family and upon his pure wives, and upon those who follow them until the day of resurrection.
أولا نسأل الله بمنه وكرمه أن يحفظنا جميعا من كل بلاء يصيب إيماننا ومن كل بلاء يصيب أبداننا.
Firstly, we ask Allah the Most High to preserve us in terms of our bodies and in terms of our health, and also to preserve us from anything that can adversely affect us in our religion. So from both of these things that may afflict us, in terms of our religion and in terms of our body.
وحديثنا اليوم حديث ذو أهمية عظمى، وتكمن أهميته في كون كثير من الناس يتساهلون فيه، وأعني به السخرية والاستهزاء بالآخرين.
The subject of tonight's lecture is one of great importance, and the reason for this is because there are many people who are negligent of this topic, and they are or they are negligent and they fall into the mockery of others quite easily without thinking anything of it.
والله عز وجل قد نهانا عن ذلك وحذرنا عن عواقبه، فقال سبحانه وتعالى في الآية 11 من سورة الحجرات: يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا يسخر قوم من قوم عسى أن يكونوا خيرا منهم ولا نساء من نساء عسى أن يكن خيرا منهن.
And Allah the Most High, he has expressly prohibited us from this, and he has told us not to do this, i.e. not to demean others. And he says in the 11th ayah of Surah Al-Hujurat, the surah of the chamber or the chambers: O you who believe, let not any of you ridicule, O you who have believed, let not a people ridicule another people, perhaps they may be better than them, nor let women ridicule other women, perhaps they may be better than them.
والسبب في ذلك هو أن الاستهزاء إما أن يكون بأرزاق الناس، الغني يستهزئ بالفقير، أو بأعراق الناس، من كان حسيبا له نسب معروف بين الناس وله ثقله يستهزئ بالذي ليس له ذلك النسب، أو أن يكون بما من الله على المستهزئ به من صحة فيستهزئ ويسخر ممن أصابه الله وابتلاه ببعض العاهات أو الأمراض فيسخر منه. فإن الذي يسخر على هذا النحو إنما يسخر من قدر الله وحكمة الله.
And that's because the reasons for mocking or demeaning another people can be or are various or varied. So, for example, people may mock others due to the sustenance or due to the wealth that Allah has blessed them with and He has not given to others. Or it may be that they mock others due to the fact that they are of a better lineage than the others that they mock. Or it could be that they mock others due to the health that Allah has granted them and due to the ill health or the afflictions that Allah has caused others to be afflicted with. And when the individual does anything like this or mocks others in any of these ways, what they are doing in actual fact is that they are mocking the decree and the wisdom of Allah the Most High.
ولذلك يقول الله عز وجل في كتابه العزيز كما في سورة الزخرف الآية 32: أهم يقسمون رحمة ربك نحن قسمنا معيشتهم في الحياة الدنيا ورفعنا بعضهم فوق بعض درجات ليتخذ بعضهم بعضا سخرية ورحمة ربك خير مما يجمعون.
And for this reason, Allah the Most High has said in the 32nd verse of Surah Az-Zukhruf, do they distribute the mercy of your Lord? It is we who have apportioned among them their livelihood in the life of this world and have raised some of them above others in degree that they may make use of one another for service. So it's from the a portion of Allah the Most High that He apportions people their livelihood.
هذا فيما يكون بينهم من السخرية في أمور دنيوية، فكيف إذا كانت السخرية بسبب الدين الذي هم مستمسكون به؟ وهذا ما يقع، وهذا كثيرا ما يقع ممن ألفوا السخرية من الناس. فإذا ألف الإنسان السخرية من الناس بسبب لونهم أو عرقهم أو فقرهم أو عاهة بهم فإن مثله سيسخر منهم لدينهم أيضا.
And this, what we have mentioned, is the ridiculing due to a worldly matter, i.e. it's due to their livelihoods, as Allah has mentioned in the verse. However, what is the case, or how much worse would this be if it is a matter of this kind of mockery due to an individual's faith and due to their religion? And this is something that many people fall into, or indeed if it's a matter that they make mockery of others due to their skin color or due to the way that Allah has created them. This is a very different case, and this is worse.
ولأن عدوهم الشيطان الرجيم لا يرضى منهم بعمل يعذبون به ثم يخرجون إلى الجنة كالسخرية بأمور الدنيا، ولا بد أن يحملهم على السخرية بأمور الدين. فلذلك حذر الله عز وجل من ذلك فقال كما في آية التوبة في الآية 79: الذين يلمزون المطوعين من المؤمنين في الصدقات والذين لا يجدون إلا جهدهم فيسخرون منهم سخر الله منهم ولهم عذاب أليم.
And this is due to, or this is because their enemy, Shaitan, Satan, he isn't pleased that the people act in a good way. Rather, he hopes that people will start by making a mockery of one another in terms of the livelihoods, and then that this is something that will go and extend, and it will lead to them mocking others in terms of something more serious, i.e. in terms of their religion and the faith that they have. And Allah mentions in the 9th chapter of the Quran, Surah At-Tawbah, the chapter of repentance, in verse number 79, he says that which means those who criticize the contributors amongst the believers, i.e. those who paid and gave charity amongst the believers, concerning their charity, and they criticize the ones who find nothing to spend except their effort, so they ridicule them. Allah will ridicule them and they will have a painful punishment.
وقد حصل أن هؤلاء الذين لمزوا المطوعين بالصدقات أن استهزأوا بعلماء الصحابة، ولهذا قال الله عز وجل عنهم ولئن سألتهم ليقولن إنما كنا نخوض ونلعب قل أبالله وآياته ورسوله كنتم تستهزئون لا تعتذروا قد كفرتم بعد إيمانكم إن نعفو عن طائفة منكم نعذب طائفة بأنهم كانوا مجرمين. ثم قال المنافقون والمنافقات، وهذا دليل على أنهم كانوا يظهرون الإسلام لكنهم ما امتنعوا عن السخرية بفقر الفقراء من المسلمين ولا بعمل أعمياء ولا بعرج العرجى ولا بالصدقات القليلة التي هي غاية ما يستطيع هؤلاء أن يقدمونه فسخروا منهم، وكان ذلك بدافع من الشيطان الذي لم يرضى أن يقفوا عند هذا الحد فرفعهم إلى درجة الاستهزاء بقراء الصحابة الذين هم العلماء، وهو استهزاء بالدين مما نتج عنه أن الله قال عنهم قد كفرتم بعد إيمانكم.
And this led some of them, when they mocked those who gave alms, who gave charity that wasn't obligatory, they gave optional charity. It led them, when they were making a mockery of them, to mock the scholars amongst the companions of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. And for this reason, when they mention it, or when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, rebuked them for this, they said, as Allah has indicated in the verse, that which means, they say, indeed, when they are asked about this, indeed we did not mean this, but we were just joking. And Allah says, do not make excuses, rather you have disbelieved after having had faith. So this is something that the shaitan made them to do, and he caused them to do. He didn't allow them, or he wasn't pleased that they simply mocked them for their giving of charity. Rather, he wanted them to go further and mock them in terms of their religion. So they mocked the qurra of the Sahaba. They mocked the reciters and the well-read scholars from amongst the Sahaba. And this was something that caused them to disbelieve in Allah. As he mentions in the ayah, indeed, you have disbelieved after having had faith.
والسبب في الوقاية من ذلك، أو السبب في ذلك هو عدم الاحتراز والوقاية من السخرية والاستهزاء، وإلا فالمؤمن لا يستهزئ ولا يسخر من أحد، لأن الله نهاه أن يسخر. وكذلك الصحابة كانوا لا يسخرون، ولهذا يقول ابن مسعود كما في الحديث الذي رواه ابن أبي شيبة في المصنف، يقول: لو سخرت من كلب لخشيت أن أكون كلبا.
عفوا شيخنا، الأثر عن ابن مسعود رضي الله تعالى عنه.
نعم عن عبد الله بن مسعود.
بارك الله فيكم. And we will see also that from the practice of the companions of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was that they would not make a mockery of anyone else either. And that's because the mockery, it leads to greater things. And the practice of the Sahaba was that they wouldn't do this, as has been reported by the scholar Al-Imam Ibn Abi Shayba in his book Al-Musannaf, on the authority of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, who said, if I were to mock or ridicule a dog, then indeed I would be afraid of becoming one.
والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أيضا يحذر من ذلك كما في الحديث عند مسلم، يقول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: بحسب امرئ من الشر أن يحقر أخاه المسلم، يحقره للونه، يحقره لعرقه، يحقره لفقره، يحقره لعاهة به، هذا والله غاية الشر. لأن هذا الإنسان الذي استهزئ به وسخر منه وحقر بسبب هذا الأمر، هو لم يختار هذا الأمر، هو لم يختار هذا الأمر، لم يختار أن يكون من هذا النسب، لم يختار أن يكون من هذا العرق، لم يختار أن يكون على هذا الفقر، لم يختار أن يكون ذا عاهة. ولذلك لا يجوز أبدا السخرية من الناس. نعم.
And going back a step, when we mentioned the last point, the reason for those munafiqeen falling into, firstly, mocking the people for paying alms, for paying charity, and then mocking the Sahaba, the reason why their mockery grew was because they didn't take appropriate measures to prevent themselves or stop themselves from mockery, and that is not to mock in and of itself. And this was the practice of the Sahaba, as we mentioned, on the authority of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. Our Sheikh, may Allah preserve him, then went on to say, and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said and mentioned in the narration reported by Imam Muslim that it's sufficient ill for the Muslim to hold their Muslim brother or sister in contempt, i.e. that they look downwards upon them due to their poverty, or due to the color of their skin, or due to their lineage. And this is something, if you hold someone into contempt, if you hold someone in contempt, this is great evil. And this is because the individual, if you hold them into contempt for example, for the color of their skin or their lineage or their family, these are all things that person has or belongs to or is due to no choosing of their own. Rather, it was Allah who created them in this situation, so it's not permissible to make a mockery of that which Allah has chosen for them.
ولأن السخرية لا تكون من المسلم للمسلم، عادة تكون من الكافر للمسلم. ولهذا قال الله عز وجل في سورة هود عن نوح عليه السلام فيما رد به على قومه، قال تعالى في الآية 38 من سورة هود: ويصنع الفلك، يعني نوح عليه السلام، ويصنع الفلك وكلما مر عليه ملأ من قومه سخروا منه قال إن تسخروا منا فإنا نسخر منكم كما تسخرون. هم سخروا من نوح أنه يصنع الفلك السفينة في بلد ليس فيها بحر، وكانت سخريتهم من هذا الأمر بسبب أنهم يسخرون من الدين الذي جاء به، فكانوا يسخرون منه، فقابلهم بالسخرية كما قال الله عز وجل عنه أنه قال إن تسخروا منا فإنا نسخر منكم كما تسخرون. والسخرية بالمقابلة مشروعة، إذا أوذي الإنسان بسخرية له أن يسخر، لكن ينتبه أن لا يسخر من أمر قدره الله، فإن هذا فيه نوع اعتراض على قدر الله، وإنما يسخر من فعل يفعله هذا الذي سخر منه هو. نعم.
And for this, so making a mockery of someone else is not permissible, and it's something that doesn't happen from a Muslim to another Muslim. However, if it occurs and it's something that has been mentioned in the Quran as coming from a non-believer to a believer, then we look at the situation in the chapter about Hud. And Hud was one of the prophets, the 11th chapter in the Quran, and it's verse number 38. When Noah was constructing the ark, the people of the time, they ridiculed him for doing so because he was building it in a place where there was no water. So Allah the Most High says that, which means, and he constructed the ark, the ship, and whenever an assembly of the eminent of his people passed by him, they ridiculed him. And when they ridiculed him, he, meaning Noah, he said to them, if you ridicule us, then we will ridicule you, just as you ridicule. So if someone ridicules you, then it's permissible to meet that ridicule with a ridicule of a similar level. However, this is something that isn't unrestricted. Rather, the individual, if they are being ridiculed and they choose to face this ridicule with its like, then they must do ridiculing that individual in something that is not from the decree of Allah. So what they would do, they would ridicule them for the action or for the words that they have said, not for something that they are.
وقد بين الله عز وجل أن السخرية لا تكون إلا من كافر إلى مسلم، أما المسلم فخلقه رفيع لا يتعامل بالسخرية، كما قال الله عز وجل عن كما قال الله عز وجل في الآية 212 من سورة البقرة: زين للذين كفروا الحياة الدنيا ويسخرون من الذين آمنوا.
And Allah the Most High, He has explained and made it manifest in the Quran that ridiculing, it comes from the non-believers to the believers. As for the believers to others, this is something that is prohibited, and it's something that they do not, or that they should not and are not permitted to do. And Allah mentioned in verse number 211 in the second chapter of the Quran, the chapter of the cow, that Allah the Most High said, شيخنا الآية
212 من سورة البقرة.
و12 بارك الله فيكم. And Allah the Most High said in verse 212, beautified for those who disbelieve is the life of this world, and they ridicule those who believe. So the ridicule that's affirmed is from the disbeliever to the believer. And Allah goes on to mention, but those who fear Allah are above them on the day of resurrection, and Allah gives provision to whomsoever He wills without account.
وأخبرنا سبحانه وتعالى عن نتائج سخرية الكافرين بالمؤمنين يوم القيامة، فقال كما في آية المطففين: أولا حكى ما فعلوه في الدنيا، فقال في المطففين في الآية 29 إن الذين أجرموا يعني الكفار كانوا من الذين آمنوا يضحكون يعني في هذه الحياة الدنيا. ثم قال في الآية 34 من نفس السورة عن نتيجة ذلك يوم القيامة، قال فاليوم أي يوم القيامة بعد أن يدخل أهل الجنة الجنة وأهل النار النار، قال فاليوم الذين آمنوا من الكفار يضحكون، أي مقابلة ليس ابتداء. المؤمن لا يبتدئ بالسخرية ولا بالاستهزاء، وإنما إذا كان منه ذلك فيكون ردة فعل مقابلة لما وقع من الكافرين نحوه من استهزاء.
And Allah the Most High, He has mentioned to us the outcomes or the result of making a mockery of those who believe, of the disbelievers who mock those who believe, and the outcome of doing so. And He mentions in the 83rd chapter of the Quran, and it's verse number 29, indeed those who committed crimes used to laugh at those who believed. So this is the mockery that they used to make of them in the life of this world. And then further on, He mentions in verse number 34 that those people who believed, so today those who believe are laughing at the disbelievers. And this is after the people of the paradise enter the paradise, and after the people of the fire enter the fire. So they will ridicule them. On adorned couches, they will be on adorned couches observing, and they will say, have the disbelievers not been rewarded on this day for that which they used to do? So here they are laughing at the disbelievers who laughed at them in the life of this world as a kind of a return mockery. And it was a mockery that they made, that the believers made, that wasn't a mockery, that was it was in response to mockery. They didn't start the mockery.
نعم. وأيضا مما حكاه الله عز وجل عن مآلات الكافرين الذين يسخرون ويستهزئون من المؤمنين ما قاله الله عز وجل في سورة صاد في الآية 62 63 و64. قال تعالى وقالوا أي الكافرين وهم في النار وقالوا ما لنا لا نرى رجالا كنا نعدهم من الأشرار اتخذناهم سخريا أم زاغت عنهم الأبصار إن ذلك حقا تخاصم أهل النار. فمن اتخذ المؤمنين سخريا لما هم عليه من دين، يسخر من لحاهم، يسخر من قصر ثيابهم، يسخر من جلباب المرأة المسلمة، يسخر من صلاتهم، يسخر من صيامهم، يسخر من صدقاتهم، يسخر من أي شيء من العبادة، فإنه سيقول هذا الكلام يوم القيامة وقالوا ما لنا لا نرى رجالا كنا نعدهم من الأشرار اتخذناهم سخريا أم زاغت عنهم الأبصار إن ذلك حقا تخاصم أهل النار عياذا بالله من ذلك.
And again, Allah the Most High, He mentions the outcome of the disbelievers ridiculing the believers, where He mentions in the 38th chapter of the Quran, and it's verses number 62 to 64. He mentions the Most High, and they will say, why do we not see men whom we used to count among the worst? It is because we took them in ridicule. Or is it because our vision turned away from them, i.e. we couldn't see them? Indeed, that is the truth, the quarreling of the people of the fire. So the people of the fire, they will, in the life of the world, they would have ridiculed those who believe for various reasons, either for having beards or having short trousers, or the women wearing the Islamic dress, or for them praying, or the manner in which they prayed, or any of these things. and for this reason, it will be said to them on that day, they will say on that day, why do we not see men whom we used to count as amongst the worst?
وفي الحديث الذي أخرجه الترمذي في السنن وقال عنه حسن غريب، وقوى إسناده بعض أهل العلم، أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا تظهر الشماتة لأخيك فيرحمه الله ويبتليك. وهذا يعني أن من أنواع السخرية الشماتة، أن تشمت به لأنه يعني به هذه العاهة أو هذا الأمر الذي هو فيه، فيعافيه الله ويبتليك أنت به عياذا بالله.
شيخنا بارك الله فيكم، ما نص الحديث مرة ثانية من فضلكم؟
لا تظهر الشماتة لأخيك فيرحمه الله ويبتليك.
بارك الله فيكم. فيرحمك الله ويبتليك.
فيرحمه الله ويبتليك.
بارك الله فيكم. And from the authentic narrations of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, as has been collected by Imam at-Tirmidhi in his famous book, and Imam at-Tirmidhi said it was a good, unique narration, and its chain, or it's been strengthened. A lot of the scholars have said that it's a strong narration, where the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Do not curse or do not speak ill about your brother, such that Allah will have mercy upon him and he will test you." So we see here from this narration that from the types of ridiculing someone is to curse them or to speak bad about them.
وأخيرا أنصح نفسي وإخواني جميعا بالإعراض عن السخرية والاستهزاء بالآخرين، خصوصا وأن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قد قال كما في الحديث عند البخاري في الصحيح: أعرضوا عن الناس، يعني لا تؤذوهم بقول ولا بنظر ولا بشيء. وقد جاء في الحديث عند أبي داود بسند حسنه الألباني رحمه الله، قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: يا معشر من آمن بلسانه ولم يدخل الإيمان قلبه، لا تغتابوا المسلمين ولا تتبعوا عوراتهم، فإنه من اتبع عوراتهم يتبع الله عورته، ومن يتبع الله عورته يفضحه في بيته.
شيخنا بارك الله فيكم، الجملة الأخيرة من الحديث لا.
ومن يتبع الله عورته يفضحه في بيته.
بارك الله فيكم. And we also find that, or lastly, I advise myself and I advise all of my brothers and sisters not to make a mockery or not to ridicule others. And the narration has been collected by Imam al-Bukhari, where the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, leave alone the people, or do not harm the people in any way. And that's in any way, shape or form. And under that banner comes making a mockery of others. And in another narration collected by Imam Abu Dawood, and it was reported or it was graded as a good sound narration by Imam al-Albani, where the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "O you who have believed, but for whom faith has not yet entered into your hearts, do not curse the Muslims and do not look for faults. Do not look for faults and try and fault find with your brothers and sisters. For indeed, whosoever does this, then Allah will fault find them until, or in all of their affairs. Allah will fault find for them in all of their affairs. جزاكم الله خيرا وبارك.
آمين. أود فقط وأنا أختم أذكر بأمر مهم، وهو ضرورة التزام التباعد الاجتماعي وأخذ كل وسائل السلامة التي توصي بها هيئات الصحة العالمية من لبس الكمام وغسل اليدين وعدم التجمع، لأن الفيروس هذا أخذ يشتد وأيضا تحور، فصار منه ما فيروس آخر أقوى منه. ولذلك ينبغي المسلمين أن يتقوا الله بأنفسهم وأهليهم ومن حولهم، ولا يلقوا بأيديهم إلى التهلكة، ولا يقولوا هذه كذبة وهذه كذا وهذا كذا. فهذا الأمر جدا خطير، فينبغي الحذر. وليس المتساهل بالاحترازات، وليس من مات بسبب الوباء وهو متساهل بالاحترازات ليس هو داخل ضمن حديث المبطون شهيد والمطعون شهيد، لأنه يدخل في قول الله عز وجل: ولا تلقوا بأيديكم إلى التهلكة. فهو ممن خالف هذا الأمر وألقى بيده إلى التهلكة. لذلك أنصح الجميع أن يتقوا الله بأنفسهم وبأهليهم ويتباعدوا ويلزموا بيوتهم في هذه الفترة إلا للضرورة، ولا يسمعوا لأولئك الجهال، جهال الشريعة وجهال الطب، الذين يفتون الناس بعدم جواز أخذ اللقاح أو بعدم جواز الصلاة مع التباعد أو بعدم صحة وجود الفيروس أو بعدم جدوى لبس الكمامة أو والاحترازات. فإن هؤلاء جهال يضرون بالناس وهم رويبضة يتكلمون في أمر العامة وهم لا علم عندهم في الشرع ولا علم عندهم في الطب. نسأل الله لنا ولهم الهداية، ونسأل الله للجميع السلامة، وأن يدفع عنا وعنكم وعن جميع البشرية هذا الوباء حتى تعود الحياة إلى صفائها والدعوة إلى سوقها. والله أعلم، وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه.
بارك الله فيكم وأحسن الله عز وجل إليكم شيخنا. ما شاء الله، كلمة مناسبة جدا جدا، حفظكم الله. And to end this sitting, I would just give a word of advice to my brothers and sisters, and I emphasize the importance in these times that we're living to abide by the guidance that we're being given to socially distance and to do or make all the efforts that we should be making to keep ourselves safe from the spread of this virus. In terms of social distancing, in terms of wearing masks when we should, and everything that's been advised by the World Health Organization, such as washing our hands, socially distancing, and staying at home. And that's because the new strain of this virus is even stronger than the previous strain. And the individual who doesn't take these measures to protect themselves and their families, then they fall under the statement of Allah: do not take yourself to destruction. And this situation that we're in, it's a dire situation and it's a dangerous situation. And the individual who passes away having contracted corona due to their negligence or due to their disregard for these measures that we have mentioned, then they do not come under the banner of being a martyr. Rather, they come under the banner of the verse that we have mentioned: and do not take yourselves to destruction. And this is because or due to their disregard. And I advise you, do not listen to the ignoramuses, those who are ignorant of the Islamic legislation and Islam, and those who are ignorant as well at the same time. They're ignorant of Islam and they're ignorant of medicine. and what is being advised by the experts within that field. Do not listen to them when they tell you not to take the vaccine, when they tell you that there is no such thing as this virus, when they tell you not to wear masks. So do not listen to them and keep yourselves safe. These people who say this and they throw this and they propagate this way of thinking, there is a term in Arabic that the Sheikh used, and it's a term that it combines a number of different characteristics. He said they are the ruwaybida. What does this mean? I will translate what this means. It's a young person who is worthless, who talks about those matters that they are not qualified to talk about. So these individuals, they have no knowledge, neither in the Islamic legislation or Islam, nor in medicine. And I ask Allah the Most High to protect us and give us and to give them guidance to the straight path. I asked him to protect us from this virus and to lift this virus and to enable us to flourish as we were before the virus once again. And may peace and salutations and blessings be showered upon our Prophet Muhammad and upon his family and companions to the day of resurrection.
أنا أتابعكم هنا، أنظر إليكم هنا.
بارك الله فيكم شيخنا. أسأل الله عز وجل أن يتقبل منكم شيخنا.
آمين آمين.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Muhammad al-Malik. I just have 1 and 2 questions here. You can get them in. One of them is a continuation from last week, because we was explaining that that if you make wudu and you have your socks and shoes on and you break it, but you still have your shoes on and you wipe over your shoes, then if you take your shoes off, you have to wash your feet again. There was a lot of questions because a lot of people apparently do it, but didn't know that if you take your shoes off, you have to make complete wudu again. So even though you did go through it, if you can just quickly, because I didn't want to explain it to them just in case I made a mistake or I wasn't sure, I wasn't 100% correct. So if we can save that to the last question and just deal with one other question from this topic, being that, let's see if I can read it out and get it correct. There are Muslims that are racist and bad towards other Muslims because they live they live in a caste system. I'm not sure what that is. That's probably more Somali or Asian will know.
Asian, yeah.
So they live in a more caste system, so they have that racism in them and they're racist towards other Muslims. How can you advise with this?
شيخنا بارك الله فيكم. السؤال الأول المتعلق بالدرس، لدينا بعض المسلمين هداهم الله لهم عنصرية، وعندهم في عاداتهم لهم مراتب في المجتمع. وحقيقة لا أدري هذا الكلمة بالعربية، لكن لهم درجات. فمثلا إذا كان أحد يعني من نسب معين فله درجة في المجتمع، فليس له أن يتزوج غيره من نسب أعلى من نسبه، فهكذا، لكن مرتب هذا. هل هذا مفهوم شيخنا؟
نعم.
حفظكم الله. فبارك الله فيكم. ما نصيحتكم لهم؟ بارك الله فيكم.
أولا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول لا فضل لعربي على أعجمي إلا بالتقوى. ثانيا الله عز وجل يقول قبل ذلك الله عز وجل يقول إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم. والنبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول لا فضل لعربي على أعجمي إلا بالتقوى. فلا يجوز أن يتفاضل الناس بأنسابهم، لا يجوز أن يتفاضل الناس بأنسابهم، وإنما المفاضلة تكون بالدين. النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وقف على جبل الصفا فقال مخاطبا قريش الذين هم أشرف الناس نسبا، قال لهم ولخاصته عمته صفية وابنته فاطمة وعمه العباس، ناداهم بأسمائهم وقال لا يأتيني الناس بأعمالهم وتأتوني بأنسابكم، من بطأ به عمله لم يسرع به نسبه. فالمفاضلة إنما تكون بالتقوى وبالدين، بالتمسك بها، لا بالنسب، لا بالنسب. ولهذا قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لما سمع الأنصار والمهاجرين ينادي بعضهم، ينادي كل منهم، لما اشتجر رجل من الأنصار ورجل من المهاجرين ثم دعا كل منهم قومه، قال الأنصار يا للأنصار وقال المهاجر يا للمهاجرين، فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أبدعوى الجاهلية وأنا بين ظهرانيكم دعوها فإنها منتنة. فجعلها النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم دعوة منتنة، مثل الجيفة الميتة المنتنة. فلا يجوز أبدا أن تقوم المفاضلة بناء على النسب أو العرق أو نحو ذلك. وأيضا فإن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم زوج زيد بن ثابت وهو مولاه، كان عبدا له فأعتقه، ثم زوجه من ابنة عمته زينب بنت جحش، وهي قرشية هاشمية، ولم يقل كيف يتزوج هذا المولى من هذه الشريفة، بل زوجه النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، والله عز وجل قدر أن يفترقا ثم يتزوج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من زينب. لماذا؟ ليكسر أمرا كان قائما عند العرب، وهو أن الشريف لا يتزوج امرأة المولى. ولهذا قال الله عز وجل فلما قضى منها زيد وطرا زوجناك لئلا يكون على الناس حرج في أزواج أدعيائهم. فكل هذا يبين لنا أن المفاضلة لا تكون بالأعراق، وإنما تكون بالإيمان والعمل الصالح والعلم. ولهذا قال عمر رضي الله عنه لعبد الرحمن بن أبزة، عبد الرحمن بن أبزة كان والي عمر على مكة، فلما سمع عبد الرحمن بن أبزة أن عمر قدم يريد مكة، قدم من المدينة يريد مكة، خرج يستقبله في منطقة يقال لها عسفان، تبعد عن مكة بنحو من 80 كيلو متر. فلما رآه عمر هناك استغرب أنه ترك مكة بلا والي، فقال من تركت على مكة؟ قال فلان. قال ومن هو؟ قال من موالينا. قال تركت على مكة مولى، يعني أن أهل مكة الأشراف نسبا سيضجرون ولن يقبلوا. فقال عبد الرحمن بن أبزة قال إنه حافظ لكتاب الله عالم بالسنن. فقال عمر عندها أما وقد قلت ذلك فإني سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إن الله لا يرفع بهذا الكتاب أقواما ويضع به آخرين، يعني مؤيدا لما فعله عبد الرحمن بن أبزة من جعل هذا المولى واليا بالنيابة عنه على مكة. لماذا؟ لأنه حقيق بذلك، حافظ لكتاب الله عالم بالسنن. فالشاهد أن هذه العنصرية لا تجوز. أما مسألة الزواج فهذا لا ينبغي أن يشغب فيه كثيرا، إذا رد بسبب العرق فنعم يؤاخذ أو يعاتب الذي رد بسبب العرق. لكن أنه يقول كلما ذهبت أخطب من أناس يعني لم يقبلوا، هذا الأمر يحصل حتى بين أهل العرق الواحد. قد يذهب الإنسان فيخطب من أسرة فلا يقبل، هذا أمر يعني تجري به عادة الناس. إنما الشأن إذا قيل له لا نقبلك لأنك كذا، لأن لونك أسود، لأنك من عرق كذا، لأنك كذا، هذا عندئذ نعم، هذا عندئذ له الحق أن يعتب عليهم ويعني يغضب لهذا التصرف، والله عز وجل لا يرضى هذا التصرف. أما كونه يعني تقدم فلم يقبل، هذا أمر يجري على حسب الاتفاق، على حسب الاتفاق. قد يقبل الإنسان ابن عمها، قد يخطبها ولا يقبل، قد يأتي ابن عمها لخطبتها ولا يقبل، وقد يأتي غريب ويقبل. هذا أمر مرده إلى يعني قبول النفس، قبول النفس. ولهذا قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم للذي خطب امرأة قال هل نظرت إليها؟ قال لا. قال فارجع فانظر إليها فإنه أحرى أن يؤدم بينكما، يعني أنه تقع الألفة، إذا رأتك أحبتك وإذا رأيت أحببتها. وربما لا تقبل، ربما إذا رأته لا تحبه. كل هذا يعني ممكن يقع. الأمر الذي لا يقبل هو أن يقال له لا نزوجك لأنك من عرق كذا، من جنس كذا، لا نقبله. هذا هو المرفوض شرعا، والله أعلم.
بارك الله فيكم شيخنا. I'm just finding my notes, just a second, Justin.
أطلت عليك، المعذرة.
لا أبدا شيخنا، بس الخطأ مني، أنا كتبت هذا أي هنا. أي نعم، سبحان الله. نعم. So as relates to this, Allah the Most High, He mentioned in the Quran, indeed the best of you, or the noblest of you in the sight of Allah is the one who has the most, or is the most pious, or has the most God-fearing in them. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, indeed there is no excellence or virtue of an Arab upon a non-Arab except in God consciousness. So as a result of this, it's not permissible to differentiate, and it's not permissible to hold others of a different lineage or a different type in a lesser regard to what you are. Na'am. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, we see this in how he dealt with the people. And when he was giving the call to al-Islam, he called a group of nobles from the Quraysh, from his family. And from them, there was Safiya, there was Abbas, who was his uncle. And these were they weren't just Arabs, they were from Quraysh, and they were from his tribe. So they were from the best of people in terms of their lineage. And he said to them, O people, whosoever is negligent in terms of their actions, then their lineage will not benefit them, i.e. their negligence in their actions would not be made up due to the virtue of their lineage. So the excellence that is attained in the religion is through nothing except through piety, as we have mentioned. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, one day he heard some of his companions, may Allah be pleased with them, arguing. He heard one from the Ansar, from this tribe, talking to one of those who had emigrated. And there was an argument that happened between them. And the one from the Ansar tribe, he shouted, "O Ansaris, come and help me." And the one who had migrated, he said, "O migrants, come and help me." So each of them called their respective people. When the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, heard this, he said to them, chastising them, are you calling with the call of ignorance, of the days of the people of ignorance? Are you making this call while I'm still here? And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he rebuked them. And he said, indeed, this is a worthless call, like the call of, or it's worthless, just as the dead carcass of an animal is worthless. So it's not befitting that you demean someone or you look down upon someone due to these characteristics that they have. And we see an example of this, where the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he was very close to Zayd ibn Thabit, and Zayd used to be a slave, and then he was freed. So he was the freed slave of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. And the Prophet, he married Zayd to his niece, to Zainab bint Jahsh. He married Zayd to his niece, Zainab bint Jahsh, and of course her lineage was of a very high standard. So she was Qurashiyya Hashimiyya. She was from Quraysh and she was from Banu Hashim, so from the same tribe as the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was from. And prior to this, prior to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, doing this was a practice that hadn't been done. Rather, it was that the people, they would marry to their own lineage, and a woman with the stature such as Zainab would not have married someone like Zayd. And Allah the Most High says in the Quran, so when Zayd had no longer any need for her, we married her to you in order that they're not be upon the believers any discomfort. So after this, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, married her. So it goes to show that in Islam, nobility isn't a nobility of one's lineage. Rather, nobility is attained through faith, through good action, and the connection that someone has with good knowledge. And we see this in the story of Umar, the second caliph of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, where Abdurrahman ibn Afza, he was the governor of Asfahan, and Asfahan was a place that was about 80 kilometers from...
لا هو كان الوالي على مكة وخرج إلى عسفان قريب من مكة، يعني تبعد 80 كيلو من مكة.
بارك الله فيكم. فهو نعم، فهذا المولى كان أمير مكة.
ليس المولى، عبد الرحمن بن أبزة كان أميرا على مكة لعمر. لما خرج إلى عسفان استقبل عمر، ترك هذا المولى بدلا عنه، نائبا عنه على مكة.
في مكة. بارك الله فيكم. So Abdurrahman ibn Afza, he was the governor of Mecca, and he went to meet Umar to Asfan, and he met Umar at Asfan, which was a place which was about 80 kilometers from Mecca. So when he met Umar, may Allah be pleased with him there, Umar said to him, who have you left as the governor or the person in charge of Mecca? And Abdurrahman ibn Afza said, I have left so-and-so. And Umar asked him, who is he? Tell me about him. And he said, he is one of our freed slaves. And then Umar said to him and questioned him, you've left someone who is a freed slave as the governor of Mecca. The people, they won't accept this because they deem this lineage to be something that's important, and they wouldn't look to him favorably. And then Abdurrahman ibn Afsa said, but indeed he is a hafiz of the Quran. He has memorized all of the Quran, and he is a scholar, and he is knowledgeable of the Sunnah, or the example of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. And when Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, heard this, he was pleased with it. And he said, indeed, Allah lifts with this Quran, he raises up a people and he brings down a people. So when Umar heard about the condition of this man. He was pleased with it because it was a position that was connected with the knowledge of the Quran and knowledge of the Sunnah, the example of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. And when we look at this type of actions that people have, specifically within the sphere of marriage, we shouldn't always jump to conclusions, and we shouldn't always think that refusal of a marriage proposal is due to these reasons, because this is something that happens in terms of marriage, and we see it generally, that even people of the same lineage or the same background, the same background or kind of status, that they will refuse others who are of a similar background as them. And it may be, for example, that it may be that they would refuse someone from a similar background. However, if they were to refuse someone and they were to say that we would not marry our daughter to you due to the color of your skin, this is something that's wrong. And this is something that, were it to happen, the person who is being refused, they have a right to feel angry and they have a right to feel aggrieved about it, because Allah does not and is not pleased with these types of interactions and this type of dealing. But as I've said, it may be that the people, they refuse one another, or it might be that they refuse someone from a similar background. So even if it's their cousin or the cousin of the daughter who comes for marriage, it might be the case that they will be refused. But if some outsider came and they asked for marriage, they may accept the outsider. So it's something that is left to the hearts of the people. And the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, he encouraged the fiance or the one seeking marriage to go and look at the woman to see, and he said that it's better for you and it's better for her, because it will start, if you go and look at her, it will start the relationship in a positive way. So this is something that it's connected to the way the people are and to the hearts of the people. جزاكم الله خير وبارك الله فيكم شيخنا.
Okay.
Shall I ask the other question?
Yeah, if we can summarize it, if we can, inshallah. Yeah.
شيخنا أكرمكم الله، أخذنا في الأسبوع الماضي مسألة في المسح على النعلين، وإن شاء الله ترجمت الجواب صحيحا، وذكرنا أن الذي يمسح يتوضأ ويمسح على النعلين ثم خرج إلى المسجد، إذا انتزع نعليه وأراد أن يصلي فعليه إعادة الوضوء.
نعم هذا صحيح. إذا يعني الممسوح لا ينبغي أن ينزع قبل الصلاة، فإذا مسح على الخف على الجورب يصلي في الجورب، ولا ضير أن ينزع النعل أكرمكم الله الحذاء. أما إذا مسح على الحذاء الذي هو أكرمكم الله الجزمة، فإنه لا يصح منه أن ينزعها ويصلي بدونها، لأن المسح إنما وقع عليها لم يقع على الجورب. نعم.
So this is correct. What I said to the Sheikh is that we took last week the matter of the individual making wudu and then wiping over their shoes. Then once the wudu is the ritual washing before prayer. So they would perform the ritual washing, the ablution, and then they would wipe water over their shoes. Then the individual goes to the masjid. If they take their shoes off, then they must perform wudu again. This is correct, because when the individual wipes over a certain part of their body, or a certain item of clothing, whether it be the shoes or whether it be socks, then they shouldn't take that garment off before they pray, because they have wiped over that garment and it's not correct that they pray in a garment that hasn't been wiped over or that area that hasn't been purified. Abdul Hakim, is that okay, or is there anything else in that question or that regard? Abdul Hakim?
Yes, Assalamu alaikum. Afwan. I'm talking and it's not muted.
No worries.
But yeah, as I said, Jazakallah khairan, it's just a bit of a clarification that a lot of people, as you know, wipe over their socks and over their shoes. And when they go to the masjid, they still take the shoes off and thinking that they're still in wudu. So as I said, it's something which a lot of people is, you know, they didn't really understand that and it went over their heads. But alhamdulillah, it's clarified. And if there's any more questions about it, then we'll address it next week, inshallah. But Jazakallah Sheikh Akil.
حفظكم الله وبارك فيكم جزاكم الله خير. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
See you later.
بارك الله فيكم شيخنا. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Okay, Justin, Tom, and okay, I'll speak to you later.
I forgot the interpreter's name.
Justin.
His name? Huh?
Justin.
Okay, Justin. Thank you very much, Justin.
You
See
take
you.
care.
Yeah,
Take
thanks,
care.
Justin.